Welcome to this week's episode of the EP Insider. We're being joined by guest Ian Madigan, hosted by Michael Corcoran, and we have Johnny Horgan from BidX1. Thanks a million all for registering. And this week's we'll be going through all things digital innovation. So I'll hand it over to you, Michael.
Kenneth, thanks. I'm not sure we're going to go through all things because time is not our friend this afternoon. You understand? So we'll cover some of the topical things on here, definitely, to be fair. Thanks for that introduction. Good to see Johnny and Ian there as well, all with our freshly pressed shirts. So we're looking the part, lads, in fairness. Johnny, can you give us a bit of an overview as to how things have gone for you for the last while?
Yeah, thanks. Welcome all. Great to be involved. For ourselves in BidX1, it's been a pretty interesting year. This time last year, I did my last trip to Spain, came back, and like a lot of us, been stuck in Ireland. But as a digital property platform, it's been a brilliant year. After the first lockdown, we had a auction in Ireland, huge participation, and we've had it ever since. I think what's happened is people's view of the world as we know it and wanting to trade everything to digital has just accelerated. And for us in BidX, it's been really great growth. Everything from, digital remote viewings to, bidding digitally and then digitally executing contracts, the whole thing seamlessly in a digital way has been great, and people's adoption to it is huge. So it's been a challenging year for everybody, but a year of growth for us, so it's been great.
Yeah, we'll tease that out in a second, but like you've adapted so to the pandemic, to the circumstances in which we live ourselves now, and turned a disadvantage into an advantage.
Yeah, I suppose we're lucky in that we're well placed. So the pivot, which has been the thing for everybody to do, was reasonably marginal for us. We're in 5 countries, and every country during lockdown, we were selling property, be it commercial property, be it residential, everything. So I think the big thing that's helped us, the tailwind we've had, is that people's comfort in doing things digitally has increased hugely. We've all had to, of any age profile, and the comfort of buying a house is a big investment. And it's something, but now people are very happy doing that in a digital way. And that's been just brilliant for us.
And Kenneth, you have a link up or collaboration, with Johnny's company, and you're working together pretty closely, sort of feeding information into and outside of each other.
Yeah, so that kind of came about. Johnny and myself met with a mutual interest, and we're introduced. And Johnny obviously saw a lot of interest and a lot of in the data that we had at iPPi, and they really sort of latched onto the idea of big data moving in the current market is where businesses need to adapt along with the culture of people within the business, because they have to adapt within the tech. It's not just about putting technology into companies. So I think the data play that BidX are looking at is something that a lot of other companies should be open to, in that it gives far more transparency and allows to be able to play with data, and can give greater transparency for the guys' auctions. They can remove the blinkers from the consumer's eyes and actually allow what's going on in the market.
Ian, I know you for a long time as a rugby player. You've always struck me as being a smart individual. You're now turning out to be a pretty smart businessman as well. From your point of view, you're involved in this little triangle of people here as well with Dataships. Can you explain that and how it operates and what the whole thinking is behind it?
Yes, as Johnny and Kenneth touched on there, the way the world is moving in a more digital sense, a lot of business is done online and through the company's website. So where Dataships comes in is basically around data privacy. So it's ensuring that businesses like iPPi and BidX1 avoid the likes of fines, complaints, loss of business and reputational damage. And I suppose there's 4 key parts with the GDPR regulation, and that's mainly the privacy policy, cookies tool and policy, and then effectively facilitating the consumer's rights, which is mainly through data access requests. So what we've done in Dataships is build out a privacy center that sits down, usually where you'd see the privacy policy of on a company's website. If you were to click through on that, it would usually go to a company's privacy policy. With us, it's called a privacy center, and that basically houses everything from your privacy policy, your cookies tool and policy, and also the right to access, which is our data access gateway. So the way that works is we've basically built out integrations with all applications that a certain business would use. So whether it was HubSpot, MailChimp, Stripe, or GlowFox, which a lot of the gyms use, we build out an integration with those applications, so that that then automates the data access request, which is effectively when a consumer wants to access their data, either to edit it or to erase it. And what we found is that can be a real headache for a business if they're not if they don't have their data housed in one source. You might have to pull it from 3 or 4 different locations, and that could cost you half a day's work. So that's what we've done with iPPi so far. And I don't know, how have you found it, Kenneth? Has you found it's easier kind of workload in that area?
Absolutely. Well, it's just you don't have the stresses of sending out a mass email to people who have subscribed or unsubscribed, and hearing it within the industry, smaller agencies and SMEs getting fines for 5 and 6 grand because they don't have it in place. It just takes that burden of stress off startups who don't need to incur fines, which the regulator, you look at the current climate, they're going to be clamping down across the board. So yeah, I found the process with Dataships great. They had it up in a couple of days, and knowing that we're compliant with GDPR and having our cookies policies in place, it's been good. Yeah, it's done now, so it's something we don't need to worry about.
Right. How does it affect? Is privacy, or is there different forms of privacy in different companies? I'm just thinking of Johnny there. If he's operating not just in Ireland but in South Africa or America or wherever. Is it different everywhere, or what's the story there?
Yeah, certainly. So basically, the GDPR is for the whole of Europe. So anyone who's operating within Europe needs to be abiding by the rules as such. Obviously, with the UK pulling out of Europe, some people thought that might affect GDPR, but you still actually have to comply with, if you're dealing with the UK, and businesses that are in the UK and dealing with consumers outside of the UK that are in Europe, they must comply with it as well. So that's definitely an area that we've found is somewhere we can come in and help.
It's a huge burden though on companies, even for ourselves. Being you're talking about cookies, when they changed rules, we're thankfully of a scale tech-wise and everything, but it took 3 or 4 resources, a couple of days, update your cookie policy, track that. So it's something that for a business, if you get wrong, will cost you money, but you don't get paid for getting it right. But it's key, it's front and center. And in different countries, people have different attitudes. We're in the Spanish market, people are exceptionally slow to give you information there. People don't sign up things and that. Whereas in the UK and Ireland, people are more relaxed because we've less that. So I think having a good policy, again, working with somebody, we're lucky enough, I said, to have it scale up. But it's something, as I said, if you get it wrong, you're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, for small businesses having to change a privacy policy, change a cookies tool or cookies policy, it generally means picking up the phone, getting onto the legal team, and it's expensive. It could cost $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, depending on the size of our business. So the Dataships product is it's a subscription product, so you just pay monthly, and if something comes up, we're at the end of the phone that you can pick up, and it's there's no hidden charges there, and that's a big help for I suppose small and medium-sized enterprises, that they don't want to get hit with a one-off big fee kind of out of the blue for something that it's not going to be making them any money, but it could potentially be costing them money.
Are people reluctant to hand over their information? Because I think you just touched on it there, Johnny. You're in a situation where some people will hand it over freely, others are just pretty wary of giving information to strangers, for want of a better phrase.
No, definitely. And I know from when we set up in Spain at the start as a tech company, going in there and asking people to register to buy property, that we could have been anything. So building that trust is key, building your brand and working with other brands to build that in the technology space, but having that and people's reference points for it, it's very open information. So it is. And then as a touch on it, culturally, there's differences,
Yeah.
you know, like we're in South Africa, it's the Wild West. I'll give you, people don't really, law seems a bit more of a fluid option down there. Whereas in Spain, like people signing up to our database, they're just slower to do it. Ireland, to be honest, people are pretty relaxed. You know, people have a high digital adoption in Ireland. I think just right across the board. You know, I think digitally we're very enabled as a country, very comfortable with, and that leads you to, okay, more cookies sign up to this and that. Whereas other markets, like in South Africa, the major method of messaging is still SMSs. You know, like back, you know, remember them? You know, so
I still do it. What's wrong with that?
Still using the pigeons.
Kenneth, do you find that a bit of a challenge? So, you know, in terms of your job and your function, your role, it's something that has to adapt to help out. I mean, you must be constantly listening to people like Johnny and Ian and what they're doing.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to note that you've got to have, like, the fact that the Dataships plugged into our CRM straight away at any point. If anyone questions, you know, why they're receiving an email, or I can resort back to saying, well, here, you complied, you tick the box that we would email you on a monthly basis. So, you know, us entering into new markets, knowing that we've got the likes of Dataships in the UK, or that I can bounce an idea off Johnny to see, you know, what they're using in Spain, if we are to open up a new market, so that it makes us compliant. It makes us, you know, have that box ticked, as I mentioned, but to be able to send out campaigns to a wider audience and letting them know our offering, and that we're not going to be slapped in the wrist. So yeah, that's where it fits for us.
So, lads, if this is the start of the road for all of you in terms of different, you know, your different roles, I'm pulling the three of you together here. Like, where is this going to take us in the next while? You know, given the fact that, you know, I spoke to somebody just on the phone at lunchtime and it said, remember this time last year we thought maybe the last two games in the Six Nations would be affected by COVID, but the old Heineken Cup will be grand for Easter, will be grand. And here we are 12 months later and we're still wondering where we are, so to speak.
Yeah, I think for us in Dataships, you know, when the GDPR first came out, people thought it was really just for the bigger companies, and they weren't too concerned about it. And you know, when the fines and the fine structure was initially came out, it was got to do around your fine would be tied in with your revenue. So you know, for the likes of British Airways, when they got stung by the commissioner, it was a big fine for them. You know, obviously Facebook have been in and out of the news with their I suppose lack of compliance. But what we found is the GDPR is not going away. It's a regulation that it might change with tweaks as time goes on. But what we have found in the last 12 months is there has been smaller enterprises getting fines. So like as Kenneth touched on there was, you know, an estate agent in Galway that got fined $5,000 for not having their policies in place. There was a building company up north that came to me saying, here, look, we're after getting a letter in the post. We didn't know that we had to comply with this. So it is a case now where the commissioner is much better funded than it was even 2 years ago. So you've got people in there working that are effectively handed a list of companies each week, and they're going out, and you know, it generally starts with the business's website, and they'll go straight on, see if there's a privacy policy, a cookies tool. And you know, if they're not in place, then you can be sure there'll be a letter sent in the post. And I think that's where, you know, we want to come in and help. Like, we don't want to be scaremongering people. We want to make this process as easy and as seamless as possible. We don't want to complicate it. We just want to make it clear that these are the obligations you have. We want to automate the data privacy. And as Kenneth said, he's set up now. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. And it just works in the background and keeps updating from our side.
Johnny, I guess you know, the old I didn't know, or I thought it was somebody else, or it doesn't really affect me. That's not a defense like anymore. Is when You know, when you hear Ian mentioning just figures wise, numbers wise of the size of fines, you hear it on the radio on a regular basis, you know, that such a crowd have been fined X amount of money or whatever. I mean, it's highly serious.
Oh yeah, as I said earlier, it's as part of the business that, you know, doesn't make you money, but can really lose your money bad and also lose your trust. You know, the trust is the key part here, that in the digital world, trust with your partner and that was, you know, we're lucky even meeting Kenneth and having that, like in Ireland, we build relationships and trust off that. But in a remote digital world, it's your data. That's the currency. And, you know, the data that we generate in our business is how buyers interact, but people have to allow us to do that. So when we're selling a property, we can see where people all over the world are looking at it, how long they're looking at it, when they register to bid, if they're online. Like, we're running an auction tomorrow. If you're registered to buy, I can see in advance if you're ready or not. But people have accepted that as part of our cookie policy.
Yeah.
Okay. But people know that, and then how we maintain it is very important. So trust is a key part in the digital world we're in. And if you mess it up, you're gone. Like, it's one strike, you're out.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it is an area, and some people, it's naivety that they don't go look in the GDPR space or their obligations, and others it's known. And the other piece that's interesting is the use of social media. Like, the people's awareness of how that impacts everything from their marketing, everything that's the big, you know, that's the big elephant in the room, really. You're talking about everything, like all of a sudden you're on a website and then you're browsing a media site and there's an ad there and you're like, how'd that happen? It happens to everybody, you know. You come to a bit of next thing, and people are surprised. Now, I do think there's a knowledge gap there in the public about that, but it's generational. I think younger people are definitely more aware of it. You know, there is that, and they're more aware of what they share and how they share it and stuff like that. But it's trust, you know.
Well, if somebody could tell me how to get rid of the pop-ups for Helly Hansen jackets, I'd be thrilled. Because, and thank God it's only that, you know. Just in terms of trying to move this forward, like, we've come an awful long way in that space of time. In, you know, during COVID times, during the course of the pandemic, I think people have upskilled themselves really, really well. As I said, we're a good bit down the road, maybe further on than we would have been in the past if this hadn't happened. So maybe we should be thankful for that. It's kind of exciting what could happen and what may come down the track at us in the future, isn't it? That's all for all three of you, like for each of your different strands.
Yeah, I think it's really pushed on the Irish industry into technology. We're now seen as an IT country, but not only has our culture, wrapped itself around technology. We've learned, we've educated together. I think there's a lot of partnerships that have come from the last 12 months that you may never have seen pre-COVID, and I think that is, you know, we were only chatting there at the weekend about it. It's like businesses that you probably would have never spoken to before COVID, you're now, you know, forming partnerships with. And I think when you look inward, and this has been a time for us to kind of stop and say, right, well, who are we partnered here with? Who do we need to move the needle in the right direction for our business? We need to go with strategic players like BidX1. For me, was these guys are moving the needle in the right direction. They're definitely, you know, digitalizing the whole transaction seamlessly, and that's someone that would get our model for what we're doing in iPPi. Is we're opening more transparency into the property market in Ireland, and they can see that. So I think if you look 12 months from now, Johnny, where do you think we're going to be transitioning to, coming from your traditional mindset to prop tech?
It is like some people have leapt into the space and adopted it quickly, and we were luckily all going there. And some people have been dragged in a bit and they still miss the old world. But definitely, I definitely think, you know, whilst we'd all like to be back live watching rugby matches and doing that, there's certain things that of the old world are gone. And I do think, like Kenneth's point there of working with people, like, it was interesting. We were there going, people, when we're selling properties, I always felt if a house was for sale, you want to know the houses for sale around it, how much they sold, because everything, that's how you look at it. We're looking, how do we get the data? We're trying to build it ourselves, and then had a coffee with Kenneth, the guys, and they have it all there straight away. And it's that people's demand for good, clear information has never been higher. People want information, they want clear information, they want it quickly. And that's why something like what Kenneth's offering and other things, working with somebody else, and it's just mutually beneficial. So people's, data, availability of data in the digital world is key.
Yeah, Kenneth, just on that, like obviously what you're doing is very innovative. I think it would be, really valuable to tell the people who are on the call just, how you go about doing that and exactly what it is that iPPi does.
Yeah, good question. I think I forgot about it the last time, so thanks for reminding me. So we're collating data from multiple different sources, and we're putting it all in a platform that has a user experience that enables you to drill into specific areas around Ireland at a micro and macro level. So you could do an appraisal on a property, let's say on this road here, in a couple of minutes, and you've got for sale, sale agreed. So there's over 1.45 million property records, everything from internal photographs, square footage of properties. We use the property price register as a base layer, and we basically pull information from online sources. We clean it using new technologies, and then we present it on a platform that you can go through. It has a live market function. It has sold history records. So we're building blocks of information, and we're cleaning the data. And the question we're constantly asking ourselves is, what other information can we get to make it more transparent? Because let's be honest, the property market for a long period of time has been very fragmented because data has sat in silos of information. It's not incumbent, it's not all together. So with the property price register being 6 to 8 months out of date now and onwards, we've come in and said, right, how can we channel the gap between both, bridge the gap between the two with information that sits online, but just make it readily available all in one place. So yeah, that's what we're doing, and we're trying to make it a more transparent environment for the whole market, and then embed the likes of what we're doing with BidX, embed that data onto a site so that everyone has it, not just our own subscribers or users in the platform. So yeah, it's a journey that's taken us from having 10 people in the platform to having over 1,000 users. You look back at March, where the platform was then, it was one up from Excel to where it is now. That's just through leaning into it, and having a good team around you, having a good culture within the team is a really big factor within tech, because you can put a new tool into a team, but it's how they embrace it, and it's how you make it available to them. So,
but I think what's interesting for you, Kenneth, is you bring both property and technology expertise together, which because we've seen a lot of tech products. Here you go, plug it in or whatever you get. But I think having seen the tool you've developed is really user friendly. It's very slick. It captures so much information, but that's based on not just having a load of smart technology people, but having the property piece as well. Which I think is
try to describe it as 3 legs to a stool. You can have your tech, you can have your data, and we have industry knowledge. We've got all 3 of them. I think what other players in the market in our space, and not to talk them down at any stage, is that they try and circumvent an industry. But in actual fact, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the industry with us, because together we can both learn off each other. So the data set can get richer. The technology can get better off feedback. Technology needs feedback. Technology does not become better without human interaction. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
There's huge variability in different markets. You go down to the Spanish market, there's great data, but then you go to somewhere like we're looking at going to Greece, there's nothing. So as they say, the better place to go on holiday, harder place to do business. So it's but I think this availability of data, and like Kenneth has mentioned one word 4 times, which is transparency. Okay, and I think that's and that's what we say always on our platform. People, when they're making a transaction, they want to know what's happening. They want to have the data. They want to know what the price is and have a comfort. It sounds very simple, but it doesn't happen in a lot of transactions. So that's what we say, Kenneth, I think is the key piece going forward in the digital world, is that transparency.
I think the ability as well, just to add to that, is to be able to play with the data. Like I'm seeing this on a daily basis now, is, being able to play with, your KPIs to know from a business standpoint where you are is huge. And I think with the likes of more open data sources becoming available in Ireland, the likes of the geolocation, we're going now and we're saying, how do we pony up with these guys to layer on top of the existing stack of information to make our data set more richer? So the likes of the BidX1s, the Savills, the Sherrys have readily available information at their fingertips. And we're getting there. We're probably 15-20% there from where we want to go and where we see it going in a whole. So that's where I'm at. Johnny, on that, do you believe, where do you think the innovation trends in the next 3 years are going?
Oh, it's going to just accelerate. It's in like prop tech. So, property trading is very closely aligned with fintech as well. So my prediction always is, you look in the future, you'll be getting your mortgage on Revolut. I'd say that'll be happening the next 12, 18 months. And then people will be trading property, pieces of property. So big office buildings will be bought on blockchain, tokenized out. So when you'll be buying a piece of property again on a digital device somewhere. Like 70% of our users come on digital, 50% bid on a digital device. Okay, so you're 50% of the people bidding on our platform are doing so on an iPad or mobile somewhere. Okay, and that's just going to continue. And I think fintech, bringing finance into and as I said, prop tech merging together, that's the way forward, and everybody has to get on that.
Mm.
Ian, are you feeling old there? Listen to this.
I feel old every day, Michael, still running around with some of these young bucks coming through us. So, yeah.
No, listen, there's a word that each of the three of you use at various stages, and I keep going back to it all the time because it's just me at the age of life that I'm at. But you've all used the word trust in various guises and in various things that you've said. And, I know myself, it takes a long time to get your foot inside the door. It takes a long time to earn the trust of people you're trying to do business with. But you just have to have everything 100% correct all of the time. Otherwise, if you lose that trust, it's gone forever. I mean, you don't even get one chance to make a mistake. You've got to be right on the money all of the time, basically.
Mm. Yeah, I think a big thing for the three of us, Michael, is that the customers that BidX1 get, the customers that iPPi get, and the customers that Dataships get, they stick with us. They're probably a bit tentative initially coming to us. I correct me if I'm wrong, Johnny, but I know BidX1 has come a long way in the last 5-10 years, and their reputation is really good in the market now. But that's been built on being transparent, as we said, and similar, Kenneth, like what you're doing with property prices and that transparency. Once people see it and see, right, well, I'm actually not getting screwed over on this deal, they're going to stick with it. And that's similar with us in Dataships. It is tough getting customers over the line and getting businesses over the line, because the reality is GDPR is not the most sexy of products. But when they see, oh, well, this product's actually making our job a lot easier, and it's good value, they'll stick with you and they'll stand by you. And I think that's something that kind of allows us to have confidence in what we're doing.
It's a good point. And it's not, and just to add to that, it just came to me there, the tech isn't what retains clients, it's the people and it's the culture behind it. You can have all the tech you want, but if you don't have the people driving it, it's nothing. And the retention strategy behind it is the culture that businesses can bring in between them. And I think they come part and parcel. And it's really hard. I'm noticing it now. It's hard for businesses at a startup stage to get the culture right from the get-go. BidX1 are at a far further stage than we are, but they've got that culture piece right. And I'm sure, Johnny, it wasn't right at some points, and there was change.
But as I say, culture and Ian will get this. It comes through every team. It's board, be it whatever, and it has to be embedded. And it's look. You have to look after the client. Have to look after the customer. It might cost you a few quid along the way doing the things, but you have to, because as you said, Michael, it sounds like trust. It's hard won, easily lost. Apologies, some background.
Some interference. We have a four-legged friend on the call there, but nevertheless, I think have we covered kind of mainly what we want to cover there? There's one or two little topics I'd like to introduce.
That was great.
Because I don't want anybody hanging up here saying I wish I'd said, or maybe we didn't. No.
Yeah, just quickly for us, if anyone's on the call with Dataships, so it's not really a product where you just log on and sign up and the system gets installed into your website. Generally, we'll do a demo. So anyone who's been on the call or is watching, to email ian@dataships.io, and generally how it works is we'll take you through a demo. If you think it's a good fit for your company, then you can sign up through our website. We'll then write out your policies, build out the integrations of effectively the applications or the apps that you use, and we'll connect up with them, and then your site will go live within a day or two. So just to get that in. But yeah, ian@dataships.io. If you have any questions at all, I'd be delighted to talk to you.
Cool. All right. Listen, before we finish up, can we talk rugby for a couple of minutes, if you don't mind? And Ian, I'm going to let you log off because I'd say the other two lads probably. Only joking, Ian. Sorry, I know you're sensitive about these things. The Six Nations Championship, it's obviously Ireland-England this weekend. Neither of the two of them can win it. I'm not going to ask you about sort of what's happened in the past. You spent a period of time in England playing with Bristol. What they can present firsthand. I mean, did what you saw from England against France last weekend kind of put you on even higher red alert?
Yeah, I certainly think England have definitely grown into the competition, and part of that is their spine of their team is obviously Saracens guys, the likes of Itoje, Vunipola brothers, Farrell, and they certainly weren't sharp enough at the start of the competition. We saw glimpses of them refinding form against Wales, and I thought they actually played very well for parts of that game. And then I thought against France, I thought that was a brilliant game. It's a really, really good French side. I thought France themselves played some brilliant rugby, but ultimately England were good enough to find a way to win against them. And it is definitely a concern that they're probably peaking as the competition goes on. And I think they'll be coming over to the Aviva. They'll be full of confidence off the back of that win last weekend. And the reality is they feel like they have Ireland's number at the moment. In the same way that when we were playing Scotland last week, we've played Scotland, let's say 7 or 8 times in the last few years. I think we've beaten them every time. England have beaten us. I think is it 4 or 5 in a row, Michael? You'll know better than me. So that definitely has a big effect, and they've won away against us as well. So they know what's going to be coming down the tracks. I think Eddie was remarking that it's going to be a big aerial battle in the Aviva, because it always is against Ireland. And unfortunately, that was the case last week. Ireland went back to going to the aerial game. They got success out of it, got a foothold in the game. And then I actually thought we played some really good rugby in that second half of the game. And in my view, we should have pulled away. If it wasn't for, a few individual errors, that result could have looked a lot better than it actually was on the scoreboard.
Somebody said after the match, I don't know whether it was in an interview or in an article I read, somebody said we had to win the game twice last weekend. That's the reality about it. Yeah,
it was. We went, I think it was 10 or 14 points up. You think this is going to be put to bed. If we score again here, this could be a 20-point, 25-point rout away from home. That's, but it was slightly worrying. The Irish teams under Joe Schmidt, I don't think they're giving up that lead as easy as Ireland did from kind of a few mental errors, and we probably could have put some more territory pressure on the Scottish side. But in fairness to the Scots, they're a side that are improving in themselves. I don't think we got them on the best of their days. I think they were far better against England, and I think for them, they're probably struggling up front. I think we overpowered them in the same way that England will probably look to overpower us at the weekend.
We know the England team. I mean, it's been announced just before lunchtime, one change with Henry Slade out and Elliot Daly at 13, Max Malins at 15. That actually almost makes them even more difficult to defend against, given the fact that both of those two players, I'd call them gliders. It looks as if they can just kind of glide over the pitch and evade tackles pretty easily.
Yeah, two really classy players, and I think it fits in well for the aerial game that Ireland are going to try and impose on England. We're going to definitely go to the air. Max Malin's rock solid at the back. You're going to have Elliot Daly, who's probably going to be on rotation with dropping into the backfield on kick chases and whatnot. And he's up there with the best in the world. And yeah, one area we could potentially catch him out is defensively. He hasn't played a whole lot at 13. And for me, it's probably the hardest place to defend. You need to have that connection with your 10 and 12. If you get too high, you're going to get caught out. If you're sitting back too deep, you're going to be conceding, 5, 10, 15 meters down the wide channel. And if Ireland can do that, and if we can get soft edges, then suddenly we'll actually look a far more powerful side than we are. Whereas if we're getting caught on the gain line in that first phase, and England are getting their line set and it's slow ball for us, then it can be a really long day.
Can we agree that Tadhg Byrne will come in to the second row and Peter O'Mahony will come into the back row? If we can agree that, maybe don't agree with what I say, but in terms of the back division, then what do you do there? Because Jamison Gibson-Park has been quite good. Obviously, Gary Ringrose is missing, and there has to be a question mark over the defence of James Lowe.
Yeah, certainly. Like the reality is, I think James Lowe has been good in certain aspects of his attack. He's carried the ball really well, but he's also missed a couple of opportunities. And like that one in the second half. In the Scottish game, we've put together a big passage of play, 15, 20 phases. He's got the ball down at 2v1 down the touchline, and he just looked really fatigued and ultimately threw, a really poor pass. So I think like errors like that compounded with, the obvious errors that everyone's been talking about in defence. For me personally, I think that there's going to be a change there. I think Jacob Stockdale's shown enough form for Ulster over the last few weeks to show that he's fully fit and wound up. And for me, he's probably a better player in the air as well. He's a bit taller than James Lowe. He's more experienced at playing full back. So having someone like him come in on the wing, he's going to be really hungry. It's going to be his first game in the Six Nations. It could be a real energizer for that Irish backline.
Sorry, just checking my phone to see the team is supposed to be kind of announced around 3:00-ish. But it's not there, but it's just ads for Helly Henson jackets, so I'll have to get off that. Before we finish up, can I just ask you, Son, just in relation to that Ireland England thing, how do you think that's going to pan out? And could you give us your expert knowledge on whether Wales can complete the Grand Slam against France in Paris?
Yeah, I was talking to Dwayne Peel about the Wales-France game today, and he gave me some incredible stats on when Wales are in the running for the championship. I think it's happened something like 35 times in the history of the competition. They've come up trumps, I think, 33 times. When they're going for a Grand Slam, I think it's 8, they've been successful 6 times. That's incredible. Yeah. So I think they're the side that everyone's written off at every opportunity this year. People would have said, "Oh, where do you think Wales will come? Maybe 4th or 5th this year." I definitely thought Ireland, England, and France were going to finish ahead of them. But look, fair play to them, and they're a side that have grown throughout the competition. I didn't think they were playing well when they were winning earlier on in the competition. I actually thought they played really well in their last 2 games. Their last 2 games. In fairness, sorry. So I think that's going to be really tight. It's only going to be a 2 or 3 point game. I still think France probably have a bit too much class at home. The likes of Dupont, Vacatal, like they've got some serious talent there. We might see Ntamack come in and play at 10. I think he's back fully fit. So I think France will just about scrape that. I think our game is going to be a real arm wrestle as well. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. For me, I don't think there's going to be too many tries scored. It's going to be a bit of a kick fest. And for me, it's whoever can get those soft edges and get their team going forward will ultimately win the game.
You think that the English wings, Johnny May and Anthony Watson, could be the difference? That's where they can punish Ireland.
Yeah, look, they probably have. There's no question how dangerous those guys. But for me, it's going to be up front in the pack. If they can really get their forwards rolling. if they can overpower us the way they have done the last probably 3 or 4 times they've played us, it could be a long day for us. But, you know, if we can get that front foot ball, we can look, as I said, we can look a lot more powerful than we actually are.
All right. Okay. Listen, thanks for sharing your thoughts there with us. And thanks to Kenneth and Johnny as well. And I'm finished.
Brilliant.
So,
thanks a million, Michael. Yeah, it was great.
Carry them home, as they say, after this.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, anyone who joined will receive a replay. So thanks all. Ian, thanks a million. Johnny, I really appreciate you jumping on. I know you're busy at the minute with an auction tomorrow. And Michael, you're a gent. Thanks very much.
Always fine.
Enjoy the weekend. Cheers.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thanks
guys. Cheers. Thanks, Johnny. Cheers.